This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 3 and welcome to the show the new interim chair of the Food Fishery Committee, Merv Wiseman. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Brian, and thank you for that intro. Welcome back from your mission overseas, by the way. Very interesting one, judging from your expose, your narrative from yesterday, that's for sure. So we'd like to see all that cleared up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but you've got some breaking news on your own front this morning on a news release I saw last night. So go ahead. I'll let you take the thunder.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And of course, Barry has made the decision for his own personal considerations.
Barry Fordham, of course.
Barry Fordham to step back and to manage his situation a little differently. And I think he will have some announcements on that before the week is out. But I'll leave that to him. Mm-hmm. He was the chair, of course, the long-term chair of the food fishery organization, food fishery group that we had formed. Mm-hmm. And I came in as part of that, of course, earlier on this year. And so now he's decided to step back. So we're just kind of restructured the committee a little bit. The feeling is that we, through Barry's effort and his leadership, which we really, really appreciate, and many others do as well, we felt that we had gained a level of respect, a level of momentum, if you will, and some gains towards what it is we wanted to achieve. With regard to putting that group together, with regard to making the codfish more accessible over the long term for the people in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we felt it would be a shame to just drop it from there. So, as a matter of fact, our feeling is that we should perhaps grow it a little more, enlarge it, and strengthen it, and we have a lot of ideas for the season as we get into later on the summer and the fall, if you will, to build some more to short, medium-term, and long-term strategies, with the group, and maybe turn it into an organization. Who knows? They're just ideas at the moment, but certainly something that we wanted to build on and carry this forward. I certainly have my own issues with regard to medical issues, but things are going very well on that front, and I'm very pleased to be able to say that, knock on wood, and certainly felt energized with the group that was there, and feel very encouraged from the feedback that we've been getting. I think, excuse me, that's where it's all at, is the feedback that we're getting from the different groups of people on the different coast. As you know, we've been subdivided now into the south and west and the east coast and the northern fishery, and with regard to the management of the food fishery. So we did achieve, I think, some real positive results on the east coast, the northern cod, but less than that, and a lot of pushback from the south and the west coast with regard to the way that area, the residents have been treated. I know I come from the south coast, of course, and I did have a weekend out there last week from North Harbour, and we're still learning a lot of things, but for the most part, things have settled for the summer, and people are trying to manage what they have in front of them. We're trying to monitor not only comments that comes back, but observations on the water. We're seeing things that we haven't seen in other years. We're seeing a really high level of success with the northern cod sections, and quite frankly, other parts where they only get out for the 3 days, other parts of the province. We're seeing capelin rolling on the beaches in ways that we haven't seen it for a long, long time. That's an interesting feature that we want to follow. The way the capelin is being treated, and obviously the way the codfish is behaving in response to that. I know in Peninsula Bay, where I spent the day out, never seen capelin coming out of the fish's mouth like that before for a long time in that area. Very sizable fish where I was, and something there has not been an onslaught of boats going out from the communities as far as we can determine, I know in the community that I live in, North Harbour, I'm watching 3 or 4 boats a day, if you will, for the weekend, for the 3 days, which is nothing compared to what people had envisioned. Armadas going out there and raking in the fish, if you will, every single day and every single minute. So these are very keen observations, and it's certainly something that we need to feed into to our bucket as a committee and try to, to move it forward on that basis. So I'm well motivated. And I think, we're going to manage this, and we'll see where it goes in the long run, and certainly appreciate the opportunity that you and the VOCM has given us to build on that momentum too.
Well, Merv, if you put the same viv and vigor into your efforts with this that you have into search and rescue and your advocacy for safety on the waters around our shores and elsewhere over the years, boy, I'll tell you, the committee is in good shape. I will say that. And I say that as an unbiased, just observant journalist over the years who has seen firsthand your advocacy and your passion for it and your nonstop. I mean, despite I know your health challenges over the years, so you're feeling pretty good to take on the role. I mean, I know we've talked openly about your transplant and that sort of thing and up along. But how you doing? How you feeling these days? Clearly, pretty good to take this on.
Yeah, for sure, Ryan, and thank you for that. I'm as afraid to talk about it because I don't want to jinx it.
Well, I do apologize for that. So
No, don't do that, because look, I really do intend, as I get into the fall, to play a bigger role in terms of the advocacy around not just lung transplant, but organ donations and all the things around workplace health and safety and practices. And I mean, there's so much to do there, Brian. It's just absolutely unreal in terms of the education that's needed. And if I can play a role there through my experience and put myself out there as an example, sometimes not necessarily the best example of things that I should have done along the way to be a little more conscious and a little more safe towards the practices in the workplace, I want to be part of that. So the more we can talk about that, I think that's going to be a big thing going forward. But in terms of my abilities and my expectation of doing the job around this advocacy, around the codfish and the food fishery and so on, I think I've had a lot of experience. I've been 35 years with the Canadian Coast Guard, and certainly the work with search and rescue and all the effort that I've put into safety at sea. I mean, safety at sea has really been my mantra for such a long time, and my genuine concern about that. And even as I talk about the food fishery, I can't even speak about it without putting safety first. It's a safety issue, and again, a lot more education that's going to be needed along these lines. But I think ultimately, if we can get there, by that I mean being around the table with the stakeholders. We have NGOs there, Oceania Canada, and the Sierra Club. We have the FFAW, the commercial, and the corporate people around that table. We need to sit there shoulder to shoulder and be part, because we took a beating. The food fishery participants took a beating this spring with regard to how much fish we were taking out of the system. So we have a stake in all that, and we have a position that we need to clarify and talk about what the real issue is in terms of who's pulling the fish out of the ocean and what impacts it mostly. So that's a big part of it. I think the other big part too, and I'll just I can conclude on this because I'll take a lot of time there, is the political part of this. And I know from my advocacy in the past that it very much becomes a political argument. And the position is starting to, it has evolved to the point where we're not, we as food fishery people in this province, and what all that means in terms of our culture, of our food supply, the food chain, and so on. We are not being very well served by the politicians, and for quite a number of years, we put our faith in the ability of politicians to represent us where it counts, in the House of Commons in particular, but in other places, and they've let us down. There's no question about it, and the feeling and the prevailing feeling by far is that we have been let down by our politicians. So this has become a political issue. And we'll fight that political battle. We will not take a back seat on this, and we will let the politicians know that, if at the very least we have to work our votes for them to represent us in a way that serves us better, we're going to be there. We'll be at the table, and we'll be there in force. And that's a message that we want to get out along with, trying to do all the other things that I've mentioned there, right?
Well, Merv, people will say, and I've recognized this over the years, you mentioned that sometimes, you fall into that rare breed of people who, sometimes put more attention on others and rather than on themselves sometimes, looking after themselves. You're looking after others sometimes more, as you alluded to, and that's not a knock, that's a compliment. But and you mentioned the health of the fish. I couldn't help but just mention the 58-pounder cod caught by Boyd Peddle a few days ago in New Perlican. Great picture of him standing up next to it, and it's just about as tall as him, and it's on the NL Maritime, I think, Facebook page. But Moses, what a size! Almost 60-pound cod.
Yes.
And it looks like it's the same girth and height as the man himself. So. Yeah, they're out. They're out there. They're out there.
They are, and I spoke to my brother last night, actually, up in Notre Dame Bay, around Long Island, by Beaumont, and he's saying one of the complaints, strangely enough, if you want to call it a complaint, but he said one of the complaints is that the fish are too big. Mm-hmm. The fish they're getting are too big. They don't like. It's a lot of work. You have to be very skilled in a lot of ways to do the filleting. And these big fish, some of them they like to get a few, to get down under the salt, and dry it, whatever. But other than that, they like to get the medium kind of fish. But so there's actually a little complaint there. Go figure that some of the fish and a lot of the fish, most of them in our area up there. I say our, because that's where I came from originally. Is just too big to manage.
Well, maybe that's it. As you said earlier, they're eating too much capelin and they're not exercising enough. So there you go. It's not just humans.
Yep, absolutely, and that's that's a huge topic in and of itself. I mean, there's 14,000 tons of capelin coming out of the water commercially. So the Japanese can be well served, with their caviar from the female spawn, and that has to be examined. That has to be looked at. When I saw the passing of Bill Montevecchi, one of the first things that came to mind was his advocacy around protecting the capelin, the food supply, not only just for the fish itself, but for the birds. And going back to I mean, a lot of the gannets vacated the capelin areas just a couple of years ago. Bill Montevecchi talked a lot about that, and he attributed primarily to the lack of capelin coming in for a few years. So there you go. There's so many facets to it.
I'm glad you were able to throw that in about Bill too. I'm welcoming any comments. I mean, I don't want to just let that pass either. Again, I can't say enough, but I would leave it to the callers to do so. Anyway, Murph, listen, thanks for the call. Good luck with your new position, interim chair. I'll leave it at that for now. I guess that's just in the transition, but interim chair of the Food Fishery Committee. Look forward to more chats. Thanks, Murph. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Go to line number one. Frank, you're on the air.
Yep. I just want to mention two quick things from previous callers. One is Beaumont Hamel.
Yeah,
My grandfather was there. He was knocked down there, wounded, but he obviously survived. And the wife was just over there as an Aboriginal representative elder, and she spoke in her language at 4 of the ceremonies, and she came back with a message. It's just overwhelming, which you can understand. The second thing I wanted to mention was Bill Montevecchi. I knew Bill back in the day, and Bill knew a lot of people and impacted a lot of people positively. And Bill was a good guy. He more than paid his dues, and God bless Bill.
Absolutely. I echo all of that. I was there for the ceremony, as you know, and of course, Bill, I can't tell you how much of a resource he's been over the years for journalists in this province, trying to get our heads around, all the intricacies of it. None of us are marine biologists, not even George Costanza. So that's from my Seinfeld friends. But Bill was just, he was such a resource. And to bring his, expertise in Massachusetts, thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, grandfather and Bill both more than paid their dues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well said.
Okay, bear licenses in Labrador. Here's what's going on. The province in Newfoundland, that part of the province, they sell an awful lot of beer licenses every year, and they're thinking, maybe we should have some concerns about the beer population. They're not sure of it, but they think so. They sell a lot of beer licenses not because there's so many beer hunters there, although there are with the outfitters, the moose and caribou outfitters sell. They sell bonus bear hunts in their fall hunts, and they have a dedicated spring hunt. We don't have any non-resident hunting going on here. But there's also a lot of resident licenses sold in Newfoundland, and these are bear licenses. These are sold mostly to assistant moose hunters. These are guys looking to carry a rifle to help their buddy get a moose, or
right.
maybe even get a moose, period, without a license to cover it, all of which is illegal. I'm not condoning it. But we don't have that problem in Labrador. We've got 300 moose licenses, and we hunt most of our moose in the winter when there's no bear licenses. So we don't have that problem. And we don't have any non-resident bear hunting going on here, because there's no non-resident moose or caribou hunting here. It doesn't exist. So you have a situation where if you were to get the license sales for Newfoundland versus Labrador, vastly, vastly different. But there's more to it than that. Newfoundland is an island. It's pretty small compared to Labrador. Labrador is almost 3 times bigger than Newfoundland. And then you got neighboring Quebec. We have got bears, and we got a lot of bears. In my background, I worked 33 years as a conservation officer, and I've seen both sides of this. I worked at that. I dealt with plenty of bears when I had a uniform on, but I also, long before I was ever a conservation officer, and since, I also trap. So, I've seen both sides of this. So in Newfoundland, they possibly have a concern about bears, so what they've decided to do is limit the licenses to 2 per year, 4 bears per year, which seems like a lot of bears, but it's not if you're a commercial harvester of bears. I know myself, I've taken as high as 6 a year, but I don't take any more than that because there's so much involved. But there are other guys who take more than that. So they've limited it to 2. And the problem is, of course, is that, what you got to appreciate here is that for every bear that a trapper takes in the spring when the fur is good in May month, that's one less bear that conservation officers got to deal with during peak fire season. Right. Because the nuisance bears are mostly a problem in the middle of the summer, which is also peak fire season. So what we're doing here, we're not working smart. We're asking our wildlife officer, we're trying, here we are going to limit the number of bears that a commercial trapper can take. At the same time, the bears that they don't take, good chance they're going to become a problem in town and at cabins. And at the same time, we're expecting the wildlife officer to respond to that. Well, he's got to respond to fires too. And it's like, wait now, you can't be in 2 places at once. And we had a very good example of that here the other day. There was a fellow came to me, people still come to me, even though I've been retired quite a while, and he had loons in his salmon net. And I would have went to help the guy, except I was on the way to the cabin, and I had everything packed up and ready to go.
Did you say loons?
Anyway, I said, what's that? Loons, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They just accidentally caught.
Yep.
I've let them go before. Anyway, I said, look, all you got to do is go down to the office down there. He said, I have the time of the call that I made to the emergency standby number, by the way. It was at 10:42. Mm-hmm. There was nobody there. He said, well, I said, you should have go to the back door. He said, I went to the back door. There was nobody there. Well, maybe the one person is supposed to be man at that, or maybe the person was in the bathroom or something, locked the door, we'll say. But then I called the standby number, 897-7116. That's locked in my head from years and years. And when I worked at it, and
funny how that happens.
I'd like to help you. I'd like to help you. He's up in Goose Bay, but I said we're all maxed out with fires. So people are either on the fires over in Labrador West, or they're on standby waiting for fires. They can't be out in a boat dealing with loons if there's a fire starts up, or they're doing support work for fires. And so here we are. I go back to, we're going to limit the number of bears that a trapper can take, so we can have more problem bears in the middle of the summer when wildlife officers are up to their eyeballs in fires. It's like we're talking about fires nationally, about how to work smarter, and helicopters and water bombers and all that. And we have, there's many parts of the solution about that, but one of them is work smarter. Think outside the box and let the trappers hopefully deal with some of those bears before they become a problem. There's another piece to this, is that in northern Ontario, the conservation officers, they're not bothering with bears in the summer. They're on fires and whatever else they got to do. That's contracted out to the trappers. I was talking to some of the trappers in Timmins, Ontario. So we've got trappers who can do that too. So the province has got to start thinking smarter here. But another thing too is we get a lot of this in Labrador, is that we get a Newfoundland solution, comes to Labrador looking for a problem. Well, we don't have a problem with bears here. Almost every community here has problems with bears in the summer. That's not the case in Newfoundland. So they have a possible problem in Newfoundland, and they apply a provincial solution. Nobody I know, and I know most of the trappers in Labrador, I dealt with them over the years, And if I don't know, then Jimmy, who called the program yesterday, Jimmy Schaus, our fur agent here, he knows them. Nobody asked us. Zero. So, it's time to smarten up here and start thinking outside the box. Labrador is not like Newfoundland in this particular case, and to work smarter.
Yeah, it would seem like you could, apply a solution to a specific area that, instead of a whole swath and saying this is the entire province, here's our management plan. I mean, every other species has a management plan specific to the needs of that area, whether it's, personally, I mean, like I hear more problems with polar bears really in our news than we do actual black bears. And that's just, that's our geography. Although even that's arguably changing with the environment and the ice flows and all the, the way they get around. I do know that I think it was a month ago maybe, and I thought it was Eastport that the woman was calling about the bear problem there. That they were coming back and forth into the community. But I mean, they're so few and far between. And you mentioned Jimmy yesterday. I think he said there were 35 taken last year in Labrador. Is that right?
I don't know the number. See, he would have them where he,
but does that sound right? Is that about a number?
I would say, that might be right. But I'll tell you what is taken, though, is that most of the bears that are taken in the summer by the conservation officers, they're either brought up the road and released, and then they come back again most times, and then they become really hard to catch because they're smart, or they're just shot and brought to the dump. And that's a fact. So if we can get trappers to take some of that off the conservation officer's plate, if not wholly, and contract them to do it in the summer, by letting them have the licenses, which they've been accustomed to in the past. Before there was no limit, and like I say, we don't have a shortage of bears. What we got a shortage of is people to be able to deal with the bears, with the problem bears.
It'd be interesting to know the inner workings and the mindset and why they do it that way, and whether it's done that way because it's the way it's always been done. We all know that mantra and how that works. Until there's a need to change it, and a pressure to change it, really, they just keep the status quo. I've heard, I haven't really heard this argument before. Not that it hasn't been made, but the fact that it can be an extra duty that takes away wildlife officers from other duties. But to separate them out and have specific people for that, I don't know. I'm certainly open to any, informed an ADM even with the department, as opposed to the minister might have a little bit more insight on that, eh?
Yeah, we're expecting wildlife officers to be two places at once in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
And again, the problem with the loons and the net was quite illustrated for that. There was nobody available. Well, there's nobody available, at least not in a timely fashion for the bears either.
Yeah.
And
then enforcement's a big deal. I mean, that's, I think, what takes up a lot of their,
And I'll give you an example, too. Like I say, I trap, and I keep an eye on things around here. And just outside town there in May, I noticed a sign of a big bear. It turned out to be a XX large bear. That'll tell you what happened to the bear. And I quietly took care of that bear. If I didn't do that, that would have been in town here this summer, and somebody would have had to deal with the wildlife people, because we're not allowed to deal with it in town. But if we had like Northern Ontario, we could.
Yeah.
But, and that bear had been a previous problem. Like these bears get into habits, and the only way to deal with them sometimes is just to shoot them, because if you tag them and bring them out the country, they came back. I know it was a previous problem because it was what we call bird shot. Somebody had shot at that bear before in a previous year. It was healed up, and this bear was on the way back to be a problem again. Well, I quietly dealt with it. Nobody knew about the bear. He was just outside town.
Yeah, if there's something there to be gained for the bear, you're absolutely right. They're going to come back just like the cat came back, hey?
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, that's what I wanted to call about. The people in Newfoundland, they're good people at the wildlife office there, but it's an oversight. They didn't happen to think about Labrador could be different here, and so they've got to start thinking about that and letting us know about this thing. And also the whole department needs to think about conservation officers having to be two places at once. Well, there's smarter solutions to that.
Yeah. Frank, I appreciate it. Look, there's lots of discussion to be had there, and I look for anyone, with the department who wants to just, either acknowledge what's that issue and whether or not it's the staffing or whether or not they just have enough for, shortages of officers no matter what the realm is, whether it's a sheriff or whether it's wildlife is a problem these days. So, I look forward to anyone from the department expanding or seizing on your comments.
Just want to quickly add, back in the day when I worked at it, we had more people. They have even less people now. That's just the way it is. So this even accentuates the problem about them having to be two places at once. It's even harder for them to do that now.
Gotcha. Frank, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Don't be a stranger.
Sure.
Love it.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number one. Stephanie Murphy, with Canadian Red Cross, spokesperson for the Canadian Red Cross supporting the Venezuelan earthquake response. Wow. Stephanie, you're on the air.
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being available. Wow, this, it doesn't rain, but it pours for Venezuela. I just couldn't believe this when it happened. I think June 24th, two back-to-back earthquakes, and it's been absolutely devastating when you see the pictures and you hear the stories. And you love to hear, the week after finding a survivor, and I'm sure that helps with the effort. It boosts morale and that sort of thing. But tell me what the Red Cross and what you've been up against in this just, devastating earthquakes.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. These were the strongest earthquakes to hit Venezuela in over a century, and they've seen about 500 aftershocks since it happened. So people are continuing to deal with the possibility of more aftershocks, and there's about 9 million people affected. So many buildings damaged. About 95% of the infrastructure in La Guaira was impacted, and things like electricity, healthcare, health infrastructure, all disrupted. And as you said, so much damage and need for search and rescue over those initial days. So yeah, the impacts have just been wide-ranging and devastating.
Yeah, and the thousands dead and still more missing. And it just occurred, somebody mentioned this, we were talking about this the other day, and I spoke with someone who'd been through an earthquake, actually was in California for the Los Angeles earthquake some decades ago, and the aftershocks, like it was all shocking enough, when they went through it, but the aftershocks are what really affected people a lot, because they didn't know what else. They knew now it could happen again, like in that moment, and everything that they were surrounded by and the devastation. Apparently what they say is the aftershocks are the worst, when they start just moments after, when you talk about 500 of them. Stephanie, I'm just wondering now, so at this point, how can people help? That's the question, I guess.
So the best way for people in Canada to help is by making a donation to the Canadian Red Cross Venezuela Earthquakes Appeal. And the Government of Canada has been matching donations from individuals to that appeal. Today is actually the last day, so donations made today will still be matched. And this fund will enable us to work with our movement partners, continue working with them, and providing support to people on the ground that are impacted.
So those moving partners, I know that Broken Earth, Team Broken Earth from here have been there on the site. I think we had them on the program while I was away. Didn't hear that, but they would be one of your partners, and others?
So the Canadian Red Cross is working with our Red Crescent movement partners, and so that includes the Venezuela Red Cross, and they're always on the ground working in their communities. They started responding the night the earthquake hit, and that response is being coordinated by the International Federation of the Red Cross. And so you get all of these national societies like the Canadian Red Cross around the world who can provide support. So our support so far, within 48 hours after the earthquake, we worked with the Government of Canada and the IFRC to send some emergency supplies. So things like tarpaulins, water filters, blankets, cleaning kits. And then since then, we've provided funding to the Mexican Red Cross. They've been on the ground supporting with search and rescue. So really vital support there. And we're working with the Portuguese Red Cross to send some more emergency supplies, things like blankets and bedding and hygiene kits. So all of these things are going right on the ground in Venezuela and helping that response effort for the Red Cross.
What kind of communication is there with the people on the ground? Because, some of the reports that I've seen in the immediate aftermath even, that when the frantic searches were ongoing, I mean, you're talking about collapsed apartment buildings, hundreds, thousands of people missing, and people literally digging through however they could to find survivors. There were a lot of reports of just heavy equipment ready to go, but not working, whether it was fuel shortages or, I just saw some of that. I'm just wondering if that's an impediment or an obstacle that's still being overcome, or if it's overcome, or if it's still a hindrance in any way.
I can't speak to those things specifically. I do know that the Venezuelan Red Cross has been dealing with issues such as road access. A lot of roads to impacted areas were damaged, and so trying to get to those areas and really trying to make sure they have the resources they need to provide support. And so these emergency supplies go a long way, and support from IFRC and around the world is kind of being channeled to them to help them do their best work on the ground. But yes, there's so many challenges right now, and just such a highly impacted area, it always makes the response difficult.
It must be so hard to keep up, Stephanie. It's great that we have Red Cross all around the world to deal with all of these tragedies when they occur. Just thinking about whether or not the Red Cross at some point becomes stretched thin when you think about Ukraine, when you think about Middle East, when you think about Gaza and the efforts that have been made there, is the Red Cross, are you feeling the strain of the pressures around the world?
We're very fortunate to have support from donors. Canadians are so generous in times like this when they hear of a disaster or emergency around the world. People across the country always step up to provide support. We're also really fortunate to have support from the Government of Canada that helps us maintain our response tools. So things like stocks, or we have trained personnel that are ready to go when an emergency hits. There is, of course, there's so many things going on in the world, so many important crises that you mentioned, that yes, there's a lot happening, but we're fortunate to have the support we need and people being so generous to donate to appeals like this to support the Venezuela earthquake.
So today is the last day that people can donate, and as you said, every dollar donated will become $2 to support the people. So it doubles with the Government of Canada's support. One more time, just the simplest ways that people can help.
Yes, so people can donate to the Venezuela Earthquake Appeal, and the matching from the Government of Canada does end today, but people will be able to continue donating after today. And you can do that at www.redcross.ca or by calling 1-800-418-1111.
And if anyone needs that information, we have it. And yes, thank you for correcting me. I shouldn't have said the all donation. Anybody can continue to donate, of course, but the matching by the federal government ends today, right? It's too bad that just doesn't go on into perpetuity as well, but there you go. I guess there's a limit to all of our resources at some point.
We've been fortunate that they've been matching it for the last couple of weeks, so the donations made by individuals up till this point have been matched.
Rightly so. Stephanie Murphy with the Canadian Red Cross spokesperson, thank you so much for the information today. And right on to the Red Cross website and the other links that are available too. Thanks for this. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Thanks so much for having me, Brian.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
And let's go to line number 4. And Tom Davis, Ward 4 Councillor for St. John's, City of St. John's. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you. My wife and I went to and did the Trail of the Caribou in January, and it was cold and damp. And the day we visited Beaumont Hamel, it actually snowed the night before.
Oh, jeez. Oh.
And you could, between Vimy Ridge, Juno Beach, and the different, it was, just to even talk about it now, you can feel the pain over there. So, anyway.
You can, Tom. And I will say everyone who hasn't should make that, I'll call it a pilgrimage, I guess, but should make that trip just to be there and understand. We understand it, but it's a different feel when you get on the ground. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's great that the province and the country continues to build on that, and the danger tree that they did at Mon, and all these things help drive the point home, lest we forget, right?
Yeah, and again, the respect that they show, look, lest we forget, they will not. The effort that they put on, those countries, all represented by top officials over there, it really was an extra added emotion when you see the effort that they put in. To recognizing our own, right? These are our fellas, and they will not. They're not letting that go. And just the way the upkeep of the entire area, it's and just the drive there, the landscape, you can just picture them running to the fields and hiding behind the trees, and the little, country road, well, not country road, but little farm roads, and all the rolling ground. It's just incredible. It's everything I thought I had seen in history and history books and that sort of thing, but to actually be there, it is exactly as I pictured it. But nothing prepared me for how I would feel, and it was really, really something else. Absolutely.
Yeah, to your point, like I said, it snowed the day we went into Vimy, and it was a miserable day. And there was just one couple there. We were the second set of tracks, and it was a young woman with an older man, senior. Mm-hmm. And I overheard them talking. They were talking in French. I just assumed they were from Quebec. And I went there and spoke to them, and he said he doesn't miss it. This is the day he comes to recognize the Canadians, regardless of the weather.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, they can tell a Quebec French from a France French, if you will, in a heartbeat. So, the minute I spoke my little bit of French, my one line to everybody was, "Je parle en français un petit peu." I only speak it a little, and then I'd get out of the conversation as quick as I could. But they knew just from that I was Canadian. So there you go.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for taking that time.
Yeah.
So I just want to, first of all, recognize the Browns family farm. At our paintball fields, my manager called me and said, we've got a honey beehive.
Yeah, so I heard about this. Go ahead.
In a propane tank. In a big, tall, one of those 100-pound propane tanks, but old as the hills, just a small hole in the top. Mm-hmm. And I said, have you called a beekeeper? He said, yep, yeah, he's coming out. Anyway, so they came out and they put a box and they put a special scent in it, and a couple of bees went in it, but it wasn't enough. So they ended up taking a reciprocating saw and cutting this big propane tank in half. They didn't use smoke. Apparently, the bees are very docile. You can imagine if you're in your home and someone cuts it in half with a reciprocating saw, you'd think that would upset you. But apparently, they just kind of took it in stride, and they reached down and they found the queen. They put the queen in their box. And with all this took an hour, and thousands of bees migrated and followed that queen into the box, and off they went. And just, it's amazing nature when you really think about it. And apparently that was the second one that the Browns had done that weekend.
Yeah. So they didn't dispose of, they didn't kill the queen or anything. They captured her, and it's been removed and, reintegrated somewhere else. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, apparently the Browns explained that sometimes, for one reason or another, the queen will abandon a hive. And apparently, there was thousands of bees and very difficult to estimate, but they'd only been there, they figured, a day or two. So, again, it's not growing up. I don't remember honeybees. I guess.
I'm glad to see they weren't just. I'm glad to see they weren't just eliminated or eradicated. We need them, right? So,
yeah, we do.
On a somewhat related note, last night I discovered, or the last 24 hours I discovered, and I didn't relocate them, but I found a wasp nest under my back. I got a little stairway coming from my deck in the back that goes down, and. Sure enough, I just try to keep an eye out because I got an outlet too, an exterior outlet that, they've been going in and sort of getting in under the eaves trough over the last couple of years. So I'm ahead of that. They seem to return there, so I got ahead of that one. But I noticed them sort of congregating in one little area, and I kept an eye, and sure enough, looked under, and there was that little white nest. So I had to spray it and then knocked it down with a broom after. But there you go. I don't know if any other people are having problems with their wasps' nests this year, but bees I don't mind, but the wasp bite are too aggressive for my liking. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of quick things.
Sure.
And I don't want to underestimate, the passing of Bill Montevecchio, incredible Newfoundlander, Labradorian, and left his mark, and I know we'll miss him. Misses his sage wisdom throughout the years. Mm-hmm. A lot of residents, this is the time of year when you start realizing what homes are probably not owned by someone, or someone's not living in it, and so people know if the grass on your neighbor's lawn is over 20 centimeters within the city of St. John's, you can call 311 or access and make a report. A gentleman reached out to me over the weekend. He actually went down and mowed the lawn, so it was the lawn of a home that was, for children who don't. So, but anyway, just to let people know that. On Thursday night, I received a call from a property owner who had gotten a letter from the city saying he's going to be fined $5,000 if he didn't pick up the garbage on his property. I went up and had a look, and it was commercial contractor garbage from an adjacent developing subdivision. So myself and a neighbor and him picked up the garbage and dealt with it. But, just a shout out to contractors. We know that it's windy. We know stuff blows away. We know you're not purposely throwing bags of insulation or siding out into the neighborhood. But, a lot of times contractors will have a habit of on Friday buying chicken dinner or some sort of treat for their employees. And I just suggest that maybe once a week or every couple of weeks, maybe knock off an hour earlier, walk around the neighborhood, go into the adjacent woods and pick up some garbage and reward your employees with that chicken dinner or whatever. And that will also encourage people maybe to be a little bit more conscientious if something does, secure things a little bit better. Because it's amazing. The city has been up and cleaned up that spot. It's up in Kimmount Terrace a couple of times. And I guess that was the next step, was to kind of threaten the property owner. But as it turned out, it wasn't even his land. It actually was land that it was part of a previous development. So actually all the homeowners along that strip were responsible for the garbage that was collected. But regardless of that, it's one of those situations where you can trace it back to a source, but of course there's contractors coming and going, and it's difficult to be able to blame one person. So again, I think it's one of those, prevention is big, but then remediation by the people who we know who are responsible. So just call on contractors if you're listening. Maybe an hour every couple of weeks will make a huge difference in how the neighbors look at you, but just what kind of state our community is. And that obviously would not just apply to the city of St. John's. That would be anywhere someone's building a house or doing some work.
Yeah. Anything else? A couple of things I'm going to leave you with, just city stuff, but anything else on your plate?
Well, Groves Road is a big thing.
Yes.
And it's coming to vote today.
I used to live on Grove, and I used to live on Grove, so I know those issues. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah. It's going to be voted on today, and I know the council is listening. I'll be speaking very passionately to it today. Fingers crossed. Over 206 people have signed the petition up there, and we're listening. There's some significant, I think, legitimate concerns that I'm hoping today we're going to do the right thing.
Yeah, and just so people know, this is a housing development just off the intersection there with Mount Scio and Groves, right? Just inside that intersection, just inside Groves. Quick thing I wanted to ask you about, and look, it's July now. Is the landmark sign done? I mean, we're in the middle of summer now, and my understanding was we were going to put it on pause last year and come up with a place to put it and have it out this year. Is it going to ever come out, and are we ever going to choose a place and, like I said, put it down on Kitty Vitty Lake next to the boathouse?
We talked about it in the spring. I'll bring it up again today because you're right. I mean, the sign is made.
Yes, it's cost. How much did it cost again? I can't remember. I don't have it.
It was around $80,000 now.
And it's in storage, right?
Yeah, that's right. And not to defend it, but when they came to us and said we want to do this, they said they were taking out of existing budget, so it wasn't a new spend for the city. I mean, there are places they can go. They're not ideal. I think that's half the challenge, is trying to find the ideal place. But that your suggestion of down by the boathouse is not a bad one either. Not
necessarily the boathouse itself, but the whole the boardwalk there. And with the reflection on the water, and if it was lit up, there it is. And it's so, what's the word for it? The entire area. You can see it from everywhere. There's a word just not coming to my mind right now. You could see it from anywhere. Anyway, that's where I can picture it. But it's been a year now. I would have thought we would have figured it out by now. So I'm kind of surprised it's not out somewhere.
Well, I think, basically what happens is the people who look after all that the summertime is their busy time. So if we don't nail this stuff down fall, winter, spring, right, then they're organizing activities and of course you also got all the dynamics of the summer holidays and everything else. But, I agree with you. I did bring it up earlier in the spring, and we had a discussion about it. So we need obviously the council doesn't decide where this goes. So we have to assign priorities, right? And
Yeah.
Obviously, Bannerman was a mistake last year, and but you're right. It's made. It's sitting in storage, and it's an opportunity. I mean, I just think of all the times I've been in cities where they've had one of these. You know, you clamor to get a picture of it, and then you share it all over your world, and it's free advertising. And let's get that return on investment back from the money that we spent of taxpayers' money last year.
Yeah, I know we had 2 cruise ships canceled today, but still, we get lots of tourists who'd love to take a picture next to it. Again, I'm asking the question. I'm just confused. I thought it would be out this year. I thought we'd have a decision over the winter and over the spring as where it might go. So I'm just asking for the answer, like why a decision hasn't been made. I have no idea why, but it seems like we were going to figure it out over the past year, and it looks like we haven't. So that's all. I'm just asking the question, but thanks for addressing it.
Thank you. No problem.
Anyway, thanks for the call, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people with eyes on council tonight.
Take care, everyone.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 3, and Todd Perrin, Vice Chair of Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador and tireless advocate for our tourism industry here in the province. You're on the air.
Morning, Brian. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for making time for the program today. You know, I thought of you immediately. I was away for a couple of weeks, but when I came back, I heard an interview with Don Street. I think it was the FFAW or someone. I thought it was Don with FFAW. I hope I'm right there. But talking about coming back through St. John's Airport, and the first thing seeing an ad for Mary Brown's, like the Big Mary, as opposed to, and she was disappointed with the marketing for the fishery sector. And I immediately thought of you, because I know, and because it was just coincidence that I saw your Facebook post, which, you know, spoke for itself. And you know what, I'm not going to try to summarize it, but you were talking about the return on investment, say, for tourism as opposed to other sectors. Why don't you take it from there?
Well, I think, you know, Brian, the point of my social media stuff the last few days, and these things were my own personal opinions,
sure,
not necessarily those of H&L, but, you know, I think that the point I'm generally trying to make is that tourism is a completely underutilized resource in our province. It does not get the attention of government or, you know, the population of the province that it deserves. It is as important, could be as big or bigger, already is as big as the fishery, already is as bigger than agriculture or forestry, a bunch of things that we do in mining. You know, the only thing that's bigger than us is public services and the oil industry. So, you know, like it's already a linchpin of our economy, and that is being done basically completely on its own. Government does not invest in the economic opportunity of tourism in nearly the same way as they do for other industries. Not that they don't invest, they do invest, but, you know, in my socials, they're out there, and all these numbers are public. You can go find them. They're not hard to find. But, you know, it's a factor of 8, 9, 10 times the amount of government money goes into, you know, oil and gas, it goes into the fishery, goes into other industries, then goes into tourism. And you know, we are not growing or taking advantage of the opportunity that we have to turn Newfoundland and Labrador into a world-class top tourist destination on the economic side. We already have the asset. The asset exists. The people, the place are world-class, second to none. But there's only so much that a small B&B operator on the south coast of Newfoundland can do. There's only so much that a boat tour operator in Twillygate can do. So many of the levers that need to be pulled inside of tourism land at the feet of government. You know, access, Marine Atlantic, airlines, all this kind of stuff, you know, supports inside of the industry. I mean, it's a very difficult industry to get any kind of financial support from institutions and whatnot because nobody views it as a real industry. And I cannot get it through my head or out of my head for the life of me why we don't view it the same way as we do everything else.
I always thought, you know, in the journalism world, and words matter, whenever we equated the department as Department of Tourism and Recreation, it just felt like recreation. Okay, that's just, you know, a side act to business, you know, like unfortunately. And as you said, you know, I mean, look, when you look at the change in climate, when you look at the money we put into potential industries that may or may not grow up to be adults, such as green hydrogen, or, you know, and look, there's nothing wrong. We can chew gum and walk at the same time, as the saying goes. But I'm with you. You know, it is built by its own companies. There's no question, and lobbying, you know, and getting out there and doing it for yourself in most cases. I mean, we have a department, but I'm not so sure it's as far-sighted as it should be. Again, our climate's changing. People want to come here. We're gaining notoriety every day. We do something important or big on the stage. You know, if Verifin makes it big south, you know, on the Dow Jones or whatever it is, you know, it brings more and more attention to the province. You look at the Mass conference that's here today, and the international audience it has brought to St. John's. And I think also, I'm not sure if you were a part of this yesterday, but the Ready at the Edge conference, is it? That was up at, I think that was at Emera as well, the Innovation Center yesterday. Were you a part of that?
Yeah.
I know I saw.
No, I wasn't involved in that at all.
But another on the same vein, right? So, look, it just seems like we're right at the precipice of capitalizing and nailing the tourism industry again. And I talk about you look at the changing climate patterns, and we're just going to become, you know, more and more of a sought-after destination, whether it's for visitors or livers.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the frustration, and this has gone on for years and years and years, Brian, and government, you know, of one stripe or another, it doesn't matter. Current government, past governments, all governments. No one has ever taken the industry seriously. No one looks at it the way that we do with anything else. I had a former tourism minister who shall remain nameless, who I had a chat with at an event a few years back, and we were chatting about the Bay du Nord, and we were chatting about some, you know, new offshore development things. And, you know, I did my part to, you know, promote tourism, talk about tourism. And I was looked at straight in the face and said from the Minister of Tourism that tourism doesn't move the needle. Now, the tourism moves the needle for the 20,000 people that work in tourism in Newfoundland and Labrador. Tourism puts roofs over those people's heads. You know, it keeps businesses in communities and small communities. You know, it is to Newfoundland and Labrador for the next 500 years what the fishery was to Newfoundland and Labrador for the last 500. It is what will make this place a good place to live going forward. It'll give us the services that we need, the things that people want to have in their communities, you know, the attractions, the entertainment, all of that stuff. That's all part of tourism. That makes this place a livable place. We're a shrinking, aging economy, and if government is going to be solely focused on the revenue they can get from oil and gas and the revenue they can get from mining and water, you know, electricity, just so they can spend 50% of it on giving us all a comfortable place to die, I mean, that is a downward spiral for this province. And the only, I would argue, and I would happily have this argument with anybody in any of the other industries, the only industry that is going to change the demographics of Newfoundland and Labrador in a positive direction going into the future is tourism. It's not oil and gas, it's not the fishery, it's not Muskrat Falls, it's none of those things. Tourism is what will keep this place here, like the fishery put us here. And I think that is something that needs to get through people's head. And the government, and I've said this to this government, to the last government, to the one before that, to the one before that, the government that gets their head around this and really truly grabs it and invests it will change the face of Newfoundland forever in a positive way, and they will never be forgotten.
Yeah, getting their head around it, to me, seems getting over the hump of travel. You know, for a lot of people, they'll point right to that. If you don't do something with Marine Atlantic, if we don't do something with the connection to the mainland, and I look, there's all kinds of studies out there, recent ones on the link, you know, to Labrador. Whether or not that's the solution, I don't know. Airlines, of course, are always the issue. Getting here is the problem, and I think that's the barrier that is all like that's a geographic barrier you can't get over. Just ask Glenn Stanford with any of the hockey teams we've had bringing over the years. It seems like they have to commit to that first.
100%, and you are right. And this is the thing that everyone says, oh, you know, well, it's hard to get here and this and that. Like, this is just a question of money and investment, right? Like, you know, yes, airlines are commercial entities and they got their foibles and the way they do things. Mm-hmm. Money talks, right? Money and investment is what will make this happen. It's been done in other places. Mm-hmm. Why do people think that Halifax has become this major hub? Yes, it's different geography and yes, all those things, but it's because they invested in it. It's why do you think Iceland has taken off into it? Because they invested in it. And none of this stuff about, oh, it's a country, not a province. Look, you can go pull the numbers. Iceland and Newfoundland are almost exactly identical. Population, demographic, well, our demographics are worse, but GDP, blah, blah, blah. The only difference is that they're a country.
And the difference, as you've pointed out, is multi-year funding.
Well, just, you know, a commitment to it. Yeah. Like a commitment to something. If you walked up to the Confederation building now or 20 years ago or 50 years ago and said, boss, if you invest X, you will put Y amount of fish in the water. Mm. If you invest X, you will put, Y amount of oil in the ground. If you invest X, you will put Y amount of nickel in the ground in Labrador. The government would trip over themselves trying to write the check. But they can do that in tourism. They can put the only thing there's more of in the world today than there was yesterday is people. Mm-hmm. And that is the resource that we have, and they are beating down the doors trying to come here. All these stats are out there. Mm-hmm. I was in a meeting several years ago that talked about there's a funnel of 2 million people that are trying to get to Newfoundland and Labrador, and we convert that into 200,000 visitors a year. Yep. We have 540,000 tourists, but 350,000 of them are people coming home to visit mom and dad and nan and pop. 200,000 are actually vacationers, right? That is a fraction of the opportunity.
And one can only imagine. Yeah, one can only imagine if they had a reliable, consistent way to get here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Todd, listen, I appreciate it.
The return is real. The return is there. The stats are all there.
Yep.
They've done the work. They can tell you what Brian Callahan and his family coming from Ontario is worth to the economy. What Todd Perrin traveling, with his mom and dad is worth. They can tell you what someone from Germany is worth. They can tell you what someone on a cruise ship is worth. They can tell you what someone on a conference is worth. Like, all the work has been done. We have just not driven it over the line in terms of truly taking it on as a serious investment. A dollar earned in the tourism industry is the same as a dollar earned in the fishery, is the same as a dollar earned in oil and gas and mining. It's just that the people who are doing it got to work harder to make it.
Todd Perrin with H&L, but of course, private businessman, great, nice restaurant downtown. Nice to see you still going in that vein. Look, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. We got to just keep beating the drum. I mean, there's no question. Capacity is the issue. There's lots of people who want to get here, but we're not making it very easy.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Appreciate the call.
Cheers.
Take care.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Go to line number 2, and Brian, great name. You're on the air.
Hello?
Good morning. Brian, you're on the air.
I want to speak to you, probably get a bit of advice on a situation that happened to me with ADT and TELUS.
Sure. I mean, home monitoring alarm systems?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was about 3 years ago, I had ADT hook it up, and TELUS took it over.
Yeah.
And so I assumed that I had connection, in the house. And anyhow, for some reason, I set the alarm off after 3 years being in service. I set the alarm off, and it didn't go to the monitoring station. So I rang them, and they said, we got no recollection of you even on our system. So, I paid for 3 years for a service that I never had. And anyhow, I call them, and I was about probably 4 months waiting for them to come in and hook up that house. And there was no rebate for me or nothing. And they kept passing me on down. I was talking to people down in the other side of the world. They used to pass me off to them, and I was just getting passed back and forth. I never got no result until about, like I said, a few months ago. They finally come in and hooked it up. So I should get a rebate, as far as I'm concerned, for them 3 years.
Yeah.
I never got a cent from it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you say, talking to people around the world. I mean, every big companies, they've got call centers in every corner, and a lot of them in different parts of the world, no question. And so I'm trying to just get a handle. So you were with TELUS, just want to be clear, you were with TELUS, and when TELUS acquired ADT, which was, I think, last year.
No. I wasn't with TELUS in the beginning.
Right.
I was with ADT.
You were with ADT.
TELUS took over the system.
Right.
And I never got no notice from ADT or TELUS that they actually took it over.
So the last contact you had with ADT, when you were with them, when you signed the contract for them, do you still have that contract and the original, contact that you had?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And again, TELUS acquired ADT. So, unfortunately, it's not the other way around. If you were with TELUS first, it probably would be smoother because they would be the parent. But where they swallowed up ADT, I haven't heard any other complaints about this. It sounds like it might have just got lost in the transfer. Hey, I mean, I know that, there's an education fund that I have for my daughter that they switched companies. And we got a notice saying, we are switching the companies. This should not affect you in any way. Here is your membership number. You're still, in the system. And I quickly went in and made sure of that because, you never know. This is a fund that's, accruing interest and accruing funding for, education down the road. So I wanted to make sure there was no problem. And I got a notice. Did you get a formal notice like that in any kind of, because normally they'll tell you whether or not you have to do anything.
I never got a thing from TELUS at all. But I was sending payments. Someone got my payments, right? You're talking, it was a good few dollars, right, for 3 years.
So you never got anything official from ADT as a member, since you had a subscription with them?
No.
It would have been on them to notify when there's a conglomerate, when there's a takeover or a merger or whatever. And then, so what was your next step? If you when you realized this, did you just learn of the merger through the news, or did you get anything in the mail or any kind of correspondence?
I never got nothing. I never got a thing.
And
I done my own investigation. That's what I found out.
Yep.
That TELUS took it over, right?
And so did you have an automatic withdrawal for the monthly whatever it is that you were being charged?
I was going to the bank.
Okay.
And I pays my bills to the bank religiously every month, right?
Yep.
And I never ever missed a payment. So all that money went out, and I never got nothing from it.
So I'm
still with TELUS.
Yeah. So did your system continue working as usual?
No, the system never worked because
I'm sorry, Brian. Ironically, our connection's breaking up here. I can't hear you there now.
I'm on the tractor trailer.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Heavy area, right?
You're sounding better there now. Whereabouts are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm on the Buena Vista Peninsula.
There you go. Okay. I always like to try to picture where someone is. So you were still paying it, but you weren't getting the service?
Yeah. I was getting no service. And anyhow, it's all right that nothing happened because my insurance wouldn't appreciate it if someone had to break in. This is the problem too, right? And I was up in Alberta for like 3 months, and when I come back, I went to the house and I accidentally set the alarm off. That's how I knew. So it would have been a good chance for someone to break in.
Yeah. At least the upside is it wasn't an automatic withdrawal, and that you could just stop going to the bank and paying it if you weren't getting what you originally have. I'm just trying to understand.
But I didn't.
Yeah. So
I paid it.
you kept paying it, not knowing or knowing?
Not knowing that it wasn't working.
Right. Okay. Well, okay. So have you reached out to TELUS at this point?
Well, I reached out to TELUS, but I asked them about a rebate, but nobody's sending me nothing. And anyhow, they finally, after I don't know what it was, three months fighting with them, the winter passed. They send out a technician to rehook up and put a new panel in, a TELUS panel, right?
Right.
It don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I mean,
there's probably nothing I can do about it, but I just wondering if anybody else had that problem.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other people in that boat, but you would have to believe that TELUS has a record of the former customers that were with ADT, and if you signed a contract, it may be a little bit of a pain getting to the right people, but I'm sure that there'd be some accommodation. They would see, what was or wasn't paid, and if you didn't follow through for some kind of reason, maybe a technical glitch in the transfer, I don't know. But the difficulty is, of course, you can't just go to a kiosk at the mall with that. Those are just salespeople. They're selling phones and plans. You really need to get to an official with their business side of things online. But you've gone down there.
I was thinking about going to the Better Business Bureau. That's what I was thinking about going, because as far as I'm concerned, I got swindled out of my money.
Yeah, the question is whether or not it was intentional or not. It could have very well gotten lost in the mud, but it doesn't matter whether or not you were out of money for something you didn't pay for, or either way. But
someone took the money.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Someone took the money. Someone got my money.
Yep, and you have a record of it. And the bank would have a record of it. It might be painstaking, but I would say eventually you could probably get somewhere with it if you wanted to. How much in total are you out?
Probably $3,500.
Oh my God. Yeah. You got a lawyer by any chance?
What?
Do you have a family lawyer or anyone who could do a little bit of digging for you?
I wouldn't go to a lawyer for that much money.
Yeah. Well,
I go to the BBB or something. The Better Business Bureau. Right?
it would cost you the $3,500 just to get the lawyer, so then you're out $7 then.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah. Well,
But
Brian,
it's not nice. Probably tell us to listen and let them know that one of their customers is not very pleased.
yeah, no kidding. And good reason not to be. You would think you can have a conversation with someone there. It's kind of like Bell or Rogers. You need to take.
Well, here's the problem. They're sending me to these answering services down in Guatemala and places like.
Yeah.
And they can't even speak proper English. And I'm trying to explain myself, and they kept passing me back and forth. Like, I'm just totally fed up with it. So I can't let it go. But I heard someone talking on your radio station the other day about trouble they're having with.
Well, we'll see, Brian, if anyone else we can. This is the forum to throw it out there and see if anyone else is in the same boat. And if they are, I'm sure we'll hear from them. And good luck trying to get a hold of someone if you want to go down that road. I might do it just as a mission to just to get to the bottom of it. But you got to have time to do that.
Yeah.
You need to carve out a whole morning or an afternoon, take a day off work or something to go down those roads because you're on hold.
You have to do that when you're working 70 hours a day,
Yeah.
70 hours a week.
Exactly. And you know what? Some would say that they rely on the fact that you don't have the time. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll pass it on. Probably someone else might have had the same problem. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, it's out there.
Have a good day now.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
So let's go to line number 2. Randy, you're on the air.
Hello, my buddy.
How are you?
I'm kind of pissed off a bit.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
I was renting the basement apartment.
Yep.
650 cable phone filled. So I got my light bill. $365 for a month. And I'm never home. Can't take care of my elderly man and woman. I'm home once, twice a week.
Right.
And then I get the light bill, $365.
$365 in July. Okay, so you're not on the equal payment plan thing, is it? Where it stays the same all year round each month?
No.
And what was it last month?
Last month was 200 something.
And it went up $130 in the summer.
Yeah. I'm never there. I'm there about what? 4 times a month.
You got anything running? Where is there? Is it around the bay? Is it in town? Where you at?
Kilbride.
Okay. And you got nothing else extra running on the house? Like, what's turned on?
Well, the only thing we've turned on is the light in the kitchen and the heat's off. I don't like heat.
What heat?
I don't like heat, see?
Oh, yeah. No, and especially this time of year. No need to have the heat on.
And the black mold, I spoiled $600 with leather coat. I have black mold on it.
What's got the black mold on it?
The walls, all the clothes
okay.
are spoiled.
Okay. I don't know if that's got to do with the heat unless... yeah, but we're still talking about the heat bill, right? Power bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I've heard some anomalies, to say the least, with the heat bills. I am on that equal payment plan, so while it's nice in January and February to have it, hovering between $200 and $300, I mean, at least it stays stable for me. But I can't imagine what would cause it. With no change in the house, you only have on the light, you don't have any heat on, there's no other power going through?
Well, I know when first was cable and phone included. Then my boss, who I take care of the man and woman, she got me a cell phone. She cut my phone in the house.
Okay, but wait a minute. So are you saying that your phone and heat and cable is included with the heat bill for your rent or something?
No, just the phone and cable.
Yeah.
I had to pay my own utilities.
Yeah, that's separate, though, from your heat bill. So you get a Newfoundland power bill with $365 on it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just talk about that. So that's the main thing. Look, we all got, I don't know where the $650. Don't get me talking about my cell phone bill because I just got, I'm not going to use, there's a lot of words I could use for it, but while I was away, I made sure I had a plan for long distance, while being out of the country. And I don't know if it saved me anything anymore because I just got the bill and I can't believe it. So I got to make a phone call later on today as well. But
when I was in there, renting there, I was on social assistance.
Right.
Now I'm on Canada pension.
Right.
So I'm off the welfare. And
Yep.
she's just checked up with the heat bill. And there's only one meal box inside the house, not two.
And you're paying directly to Newfoundland Power. I just want to make sure you're getting a Newfoundland Power bill that says your name and it's $365 for the last month.
And another thing, look, I looked in the phone book. Her name is under my address, not hers.
So without saying her name, her being the landlord?
Yeah.
Okay. So who do you pay your heat bill to, the landlord or the Newfoundland Power?
Newfoundland Power.
Okay, so it is in your name.
Yeah.
And what did you say is in her name?
Just the cable and phone.
Yeah, okay. So you pay her for that?
Well, that's what means including my rent.
Okay. But that's separate from your heat bill?
Yeah.
Okay. So we still got to get back to the issue of your heat bill and why it went up $130 from June to July if you didn't use anything extra and nothing changed.
Oh, well, I had two cats, so let's take the heat up.
So you did turn the heat up for the two cats?
No, on the state sent it up. I wasn't never in there.
Okay. Unless they did. Okay, well, that's the other question. I mean, if who else lives in the house?
Well, just my landlord and her husband, and I was downstairs.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm wondering now, so there's the three of you, they're upstairs, and you're only supposed to be paying for heat downstairs?
Yeah.
But that's a lot for a basement apartment. There's something not adding up there.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. And they're paying a separate heat bill. You're not paying the bill for the entire house.
I don't know, because there's only one meter box, only two.
Well,
Should be a meter box for downstairs.
I think you need to probably communicate better with your landlord and find out exactly who's paying the heat bill.
Yeah, and then my friend, well, takes care of the man and woman, she said, "You're moving out here with me." And she don't care for no rent, but I'll give her a few bucks anyway. But all expect her to give me food and all that for nothing.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on here. I don't think I have a full picture. You know, I mean, the trick here is knowing all the details as a reporter when you're trying to put things together and understand it. There's a few things that still I'm not quite clear on. Because, you know, it wouldn't make any sense over the past month for the bill to spike up like that. Although we have seen some unusual spikes and, you know, there have been calls for smart meters and all that sort of thing. But in this case, if you're just trying to figure it out, I'd say you and the landlord need to get on the same page and find out exactly who's paying the heat bill for the entire house, because it sounds like that's what it is.
Yeah, and in my name.
Yeah, and if they're operating different, you know, if they're turning the heat up upstairs, well, then now we know what happened. I will say this, it was cold in my house yesterday for that one day, and cold in a lot of houses, you know, because if you're turning off the heat, you know, wanting to shut it off for the summer, and all of a sudden you have a cold spell, you know, it gets chilly that day, you're like, yeah, you know, but the minute you turn it on and it clicks in, then the meter's running again, right? So you're going to expect a spike in your bill. But look, I don't know all these circumstances. From what I can gather, it's not just you in the house. There's other people. And it sounds like if it's just in your name, I think you just need to go to the landlord and make sure that everybody's paying their fair share.
Yeah. Well, my landlord and her husband, and I was downstairs.
Yeah. And that's the situation right now, right? Out. And where'd you say you're in Kilbride?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not now. I'm on St. John's here.
Okay. But you live in, that's where the house is. That's where you live, in Kilbride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I used to.
You used to. Where are you living now?
I live out in the Cadwell place.
Okay, West End. They're just above Tops Road.
Yeah.
Below Canada Drive.
Yeah.
Okay. But where is your heat bill? I'm going to ask, just to clear this up. So what bill is your heat bill associated with? The house on Codroy Place or the house out in Kilbride?
House in Kilbride.
Okay. Do you live in both houses?
No, I moved out in there.
Okay, so where is the 300? But you're still paying a heat bill for a house that you moved out of in Kilbride? Or did I miss something?
No, I got a light bill in. She gave me eviction notice.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Out.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. There's some details here. Listen, Randy, only because I got to get off to the next caller and a break. I would go back to them. If you've been evicted and you're still paying a heat bill for that house, there's bigger issues than just the spike in the bill. It sounds like they're just going ahead and using the heat out there. And if it's still in your name, you got to get that worked out. Because if you're not living there and you've been evicted, there's no need to be paying the heat bill on a house that you're no longer living in.
Well, that I talked to them how I was evicted.
Yeah. And what did they say?
She said, why? And I explained to him. And I said, I don't live there no more.
Okay, so...
She said, okay. So she can pay the heat bill now.
Well, she can, but as long as it's in your name, it's going to follow you. So you got to get that fixed up, whether or not you have to physically go in and get something in writing. I don't know all the intricacies on when an eviction is occurred like that. I'm trying to remember what it's been like in the past, but I don't want to make everybody's situation is different. So my advice, obviously, is to first try an amicable way to settle this up with your former landlord, and make sure that they're not just living heat-free or power-free at your expense for a while, and just to make sure that that's fixed up. And if you can't get anywhere there, then you need to go physically into Newfoundland Power or get something in writing that shows you've been evicted so that you no longer have any attachment to that house, right?
Yeah.
And then you won't be responsible. But the longer that goes on and it's in your name, it's going to be harder to argue. So, and if you have any trouble there, then there's an MHA you can always go to if you're having any problem with the landlord. But the Landlord and Tenancies Board, and there are lots of avenues if you can't get anywhere. And if you can't get anywhere with it, let me know, Randy, and then we can take the next step.
Okay, my buddy.
All right. Good
Have
luck.
a great day.
Good luck with it, man. You
Bye-bye.
too.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number 8. And Fred Hutton, the Liberal MHA for Conception Bay, East Bell Island, you're on the air.
Morning, Brian. How are you, sir?
Heard, Fred. How are you?
Not too bad. Look, I want to say thanks for the opportunity to come on this morning as the MHA for Conception Bay, East Bell Island to offer my condolences to the family of Dr. Bill Montevecchi, Bill, as he was known.
Absolutely.
To his wife and children and grandchildren, his many colleagues from Memorial University and beyond, and the definitely hundreds, but probably thousands of students who were taught by him. And although he was never my teacher, as a former journalist, every time I was in his company, I learned something more about Newfoundland and Labrador, our coastlines, its wildlife, the ecosystems. And I posted yesterday as the MHA, because Bill was a resident of Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, on behalf of our group, our opposition group, our party, to offer condolences to his family. I mean, this is a guy who quietly, and not so quietly because he was very vocal, went about, decades, almost a half a century of advocacy for the environment, for the ecosystem. And, many people may not know it, but this is a guy who was ranked in the top 1% of wildlife biologists, marine biologists, in the world. And the work that he did here to preserve the ecosystems and marine life and seabirds was just outstanding. And I said in my post yesterday that this was the other aspect of Bill Montevecchi, that when you were with him, when you left, you felt good. Like he was just a super smart, but he was also just a super nice guy and really pleasant. His demeanor was always just so nice to be. He was so nice to be around. It's a big loss for our province, but we're so lucky to have had him here. He wasn't born in Newfoundland and Labrador, but he adopted us and we adopted him, and he lived here and taught here for decades. And it's a big loss. So again, I'm saddened to learn of his passing. I haven't chatted with him for a couple of years, but I spent lots of time in his company over the 30 years that I was in the media, 30 odd years, and it's a sad day, but we're really proud that as a community he was from Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, and did work down here, advocacy work down here for the environment as well, in what is my hometown as well.
Yeah, Fred, well, I mean, we worked pretty much side by side as journalists the last 30 years, and I echo everything you said. How nice he was, how good he was, dealing with all the stuff that was coming at him. And the main thing I echo that you said, how lucky are we that he came here? after being born in Beverly, Massachusetts, 1946. Yep. And how lucky, how fortunate. Mon, us, the local community, the people down, donations can be made, of course, to the Cape St. Mary's, Friends of Cape St. Mary's organization as well, and you'll see that in the obit. I just can't say enough. I mean, you think about all the people that we deal with in the run of a day as a journalist. You never know where the next story was going or coming. But I looked forward to it. If I hate to say it, you knew where you were going, who you were talking to, if there was an issue with seabirds. You remember the issue with them with the lights and being confused out around Bay Bulls and Witless Bay.
The Puffin Patrol. They had the Puffin Patrol.
That's right. Absolutely. I just get goosebumps thinking about them,
Brian, I was thinking about that story. I wasn't on the ground for the nighttime shoot of that, but I remember watching the reporter who was editing the piece. And the thing that stood out to me, I mean, this is probably 20 years ago now, so Bill would have been 60 years old, the age I am now. He was excited. He was like, it was almost childlike when he was holding one of these little pufflings, as they called them, and saving them, because they would come in towards the lights of cars and things on the parking lot and on the shores, and they had to capture them and then release them in the morning. And look, the folks who do this stuff, they're down there, they're volunteering their time doing this. You would never be able to add up the amount of time that Bill and look, he wanted to be called Dr. Montevecchi, wanted to be called Bill. The amount of time that he and others committed to this as volunteers. Obviously, he worked at the university, was a professor there, taught hundreds or thousands of students. But the fact that he also did all this stuff as a passion, and he chose it. He chose to do it here. We were so lucky to have him come to Newfoundland and Labrador and stay here for as long as he did and raise his family here. And, as the MHA for Conception Bay, East Bell Island, and, a co-resident of Portugal Coast St. Philip's with him, we're just super proud that he lived here and adopted this province as his own. And we're so grateful. And we are indebted to him and his family, because, when you're doing all this work, too, as you know, folks give up their time to go and do things. And but, world-renowned, great guy, super nice. And look, as an aside, I said to him once when I moved from TV to radio, I said, Bill, you've got a wicked voice, by the way. Like, if you ever want to get into radio. He did have a really cool voice as well. But just and easy to learn from, and just that articulation and the way that he was so excited about what he was talking about, it's what made him such an excellent teacher. And I heard that I read that in the comments online last night. I did a post about him yesterday, his passing. And a lot of the students did chime in to say that they just absolutely adored him and loved their time in his classes.
Yeah, and we're all grateful that he found the perfect vocation for his life. There's no question. When you love it, it's not work, and it explains, why he did all of the things beyond, over and above that anyone else would do, unless you found your calling in life. And there's anyone, I argue, tell me Bill Montevecchi didn't find his calling in life. So he fit it perfectly, and he did the job. And, I picture in my mind's eye as a bird. And in the obit, it says, may we find him flying high on the wings of birds. And he would remind us all to keep looking up. So there you go. I will. I know that will. Except when
we will. And look, he had the perfect place here too, right?
Oh.
The coastline here and the work that he could do to help preserve. And look, I should mention as well the advocacy work he did to protect our ecosystems and our coastlines and the oceans, because we have a big oil industry here in Newfoundland and Labrador and have had since the mid-90s. Well, and even prior to that, because the exploration was going on. First oil didn't flow until 97, but, 20 years before that, when there was drilling going on to make sure that there was the proper protections in place while we were trying to coexist with a fishery that's been in existence for over 500 years or even longer, right? Just to make sure that they could coexist, but to protect the environment that's there.
Absolutely. So, Fred, thank you for that. All well said and deserved. And I'll take all week calls about Bill Montevecchi, because rightly so and deservedly so. Just a couple of quick things. What's the status of the Landings restaurant? I think I saw something recently that said she's on the rebuild, on the rebound. I haven't had a chance to reach out to Jim. I think I sent Jim Parsons a note, but it may have been before I went away on vacation. What's the latest?
So I was chatting with him, and they're still just trying to get through some hurdles of permitting.
Okay.
There was a meeting at the town council that I attended about 2 weeks ago to discuss this, to approve in principle the ability to go forward. There is still a substantial amount of the structure exists. It's so strange, Brian. I mean, you've been to many fires, I'm sure, in your reporting life. One side of the building is hardly touched at all, and the other one is just gone. And it was because of the way the wind was blowing, and then, of course, the firefighters, the way they attacked the blaze and knocked it down. So there's still a substantial amount of the foundation that they can build on, because it was concrete, and another side of the building. So the hope is that this is going to be rebuilt. And, you know, my understanding in speaking with Jim as recently as a week ago, that they're full steam ahead. They want to get this going as quickly as possible to get shovels in the ground, if you will, or nails into the lumber, the way you want to put it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Fred, look, I only got a couple minutes left, and we spent not enough time on bills, so I'm not going to say we spent too much. We didn't. But look, at some point, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the ferries. Obviously, the provincial government, you know, and I got 1 minute here now, but I'll just say, like, you know, the promise was to add 4 new ferries to the system, 2 to be built locally and 2 to be bought or leased. And lo and behold, there is now an RFP, not for the ferries, but to review the capacity and the readiness of the provincial shipbuilding industry. So I just wonder if the announcement of the new ferries was a little bit cart before the horse. I'll give you a minute.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. I would agree that the promise was made, and Tony Wakeham, the Premier, who was the opposition leader at the time, said when he made the announcement, we'll do the fiscal analysis later. The last 2 ferries we built were about $104 million. That doesn't include the taxes the federal government had to pay to bring them back from Romania when they were built at the Daman shipyards. There's no capacity here right now to build ferries the same size as the Legionnaire or Veteran. They were about $50 million each. They said they were going to build 3 and lease 1 as a swing vessel. And the 3 they wanted to build here. Right now, there's no capacity to build ferries in Newfoundland and Labrador. So this was an election promise that was made without any costing done and without any planning. Yeah. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's nowhere that they can build one right now. Yep. And, you know, I mean, the department already knows this. Yep.
And the irony of it, of course, is, you know, they'll make the same allegations against the Liberals. And I'm not going to get into a Liberal Tory thing. I think, you know, people make promises all the time. And it just seems, you know, that this was a promise that, again, the costing wasn't done. And they talk about the Liberals in the same vein about Cartwright and in the courthouse in Stephenville Crossing. But look, not that I don't want to give you a chance, but when we have more time, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Okay. I would disagree with you, though, on Cartwright and the Stephenville Crossing building. The costing was done. Yeah, there was no costing done on the ferries by Tony Wakeham and his Conservative colleagues.
Yeah, I've had chats with the contractors, but we'll get more into that when we have more time, Fred. I really appreciate this today, though. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, that'll do it for today. Just one more quick note. We had the Red Cross there on the Venezuelan relief efforts. Again, one more time, that number, because this is the last day to match it with the federal government, 1-800-418-1111. That's 1-800-418-1111 if you'd like to donate in some way to the Venezuelan earthquake relief effort. And as of today, at the end of today, the deadline is today for the federal government to match that, every dollar for another dollar. But you can still donate after that. So there you go. Thanks for everyone. Great show. Dave Williams, always appreciate the hard work behind the scenes, buddy. Drive safely, everyone. Arrive alive. VOCM cares.